confused by the whole world of health and wellness, not really knowing where to start? If so, this podcast episode might be exactly what you're looking for. Some of the topics we cover include the domains of wellness, breathwork, meditation, stillness practices, the importance of sleep and some quick tips to optimize it, movement, routines, how your surroundings, your environment, your beliefs and stories, identity, and values ultimately sculpt where you will go in life. Plus, we discuss some ways that you can figure out the highest impact area for you to personally focus on. Our guest this week is David Reveles. He's a holistic health and wellness coach, as well as a corporate consultant. Through his platform called Origins Unity, he has provided tens of thousands of people around the USA with the tools, frameworks, and resources to overcome life's challenges, achieve happiness, and enjoy good health in the process. David takes a holistic approach and uses a wide variety of tools such as breathwork, qigong, meditation, mindfulness, fitness, yoga, nutrition, genetics, epigenetics, and self-quantification to help his clients optimize each of the domains of wellness. He's an entrepreneur and soon-to-be author as well. For the links to anything we discuss, you can check out the show notes, which will be at mindbodypeak.com/156. And if you're interested in joining us for a retreat where we will cover some of the best of the modern technology and biohacks and combine that with some of the time-proven ancestral wisdom, the modalities from traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, and other ancestral medicines, go ahead and leave your contact information in the form in the show notes. And if you're a good fit, we'll reach out to you. In this retreat, we'll be finding ways of integrating these practices into simple daily routines to help you construct your own sustainable set of practices without spending your full day biohacking. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with David. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm excited. Today, we're going to demystify the world of holistic and integrative health. And before we get there, let's warm up with the unusual non-negotiables you've done so far today for your health, your performance, and your bioharmony.
From the get-go, I have quite a good morning routine, and I'll expand it or contract it as much as I'm needed or constrained, or depending on how I'm feeling. And that's what I do with folks as well. I give them routines they can expand or collapse. If you only got 5 minutes, you can do your routine. If you got 50. So this morning, per usual, I awake and I don't rush out of bed. I implement the meditation, the mindfulness right away. Slow down. The pace that you start your day with is the pace that you're going to try to be keeping up with and catching up with the entire day. So I'm careful the pace I set for the day. I lay there, I body scan, I make sure I'm embodied, I make sure my breath is in my low belly. My intention setting, gratitude, perhaps I'll do bed yoga, gentle yoga, get out slowly, no rush. That's probably the most important thing, is how fast I get out of bed. And then sit up. Little silence, stillness, little gratitude. Maybe that's all I get and I gotta go. Today I had a little more time. I was able to really think deep into the intention, the gratitude. I was able to then sit, meditation in my office here for about 5-10 minutes. I was trying to prep for this interview. I thought about kind of a little bit of vision work, a little bit of prep, kind of seeing the day through, a little bit of day outlook. Breath work. That's very vital and important. Breath work. I did my meditation, gratitude, intention setting, getting into breath work, getting into cold exposure, and then very importantly, touching the earth, being outside, getting that earth contact as soon as I can. I didn't have time to do my red light. I know we've been talking about my red light yoga breathwork stack, but didn't have time for that. Getting some nice weather, so it was gorgeous outside. Cold exposure was good. I've been doing a lot more ACV, apple cider vinegar shots. I've actually recently, I think I'm about a year or so into delaying my coffee and caffeine for about an hour or so after wake up. Because I used to get up, have my morning routine, boom, 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 have a coffee, take the day away. But that's been a major achievement. Delaying the caffeine in the morning, starting with teas first.
I really like the way you mentioned you start your day specifically because I hadn't thought much about this. But if you roll over and quickly check your phone or jump up out of bed, even if it's because you're excited about doing things, there's the dark side of that is that you're entraining your brain, your nervous system, that when this certain time comes, it's no longer time to relax. And even if you want to sleep in at that point, you have that surge of the stress hormones, of the cortisol, the epinephrine, all that stuff. And all of a sudden, you lose control of your sleep. And I see the wind down period in the evening as the same way. If you're on your phone to the last second, you put it away, you're like just jacking your neurotransmitters, your hormones up and down, and then associating that with sleep. So that's one that I hadn't thought about, like just slowing down my literal speed that I get out of bed. But it's going to be one that I try implementing after this to see what difference I notice.
Controlling your speed. It's very important in the high caliber athletics, highest level athletics. They're able to control velocity, and then you start applying that into life. And yeah, the mindfulness has been the number one tool. Just being aware and slow with my surroundings and being, to stay embodied, to stay in the driver's seat, stay in control, and not get out of the window of tolerance or very far out deviation, variability. Yeah, you set the pace, and then you just kind of glide through that momentum. And then you have different pace checkers and setters throughout the day too. Different intervals where you're gonna stop, check the pace, set the pace. Mini meditation breaks, techniques. That's why I emphasize the morning routine. That's, you have some control and power over that. Then maybe the day takes off and then you've got too much going on, and it makes sense that, hey, I better have micro practices or small things, but I'm not going to have this time to myself. So protect that morning time.
Let's go more into your meditation and mindfulness practice. Specifically, what do you notice about your doing your morning gratitudes? How do you do them? What kinds of things would you put on there? Are they always the same or different? And if you ever miss a day, what do you notice? Or when you're consistent and you have a good session, what do you notice?
Yeah, living in gratitude. We've all heard it. Creating abundance for ourselves, creating opportunities, being open to opportunities, creating the life that we wish for. Being in a state of gratitude, appreciate what we have, grows it and brings more towards us, attracts more to us. And I think I've seen that out. I've lived that. That's true. And yeah, if I'm kind of off kilter, off base, I can still get things done. I can still plug through, power through, but it doesn't feel as good. I definitely will achieve less. It will affect performance, my interactions with others, because I'm not purely production driven. I mean, I am an entrepreneur. I am very metric focused, but also I'm very, qualitative as well. And I want to have good, I will judge a day based on my interactions with others. If I'm smashing goals, but I'm just irritable or not engaging well with others, I don't know if that's a full success in my mind. I want to be open and engaging. I want to stay in the, the ventral vagal. I want to be able to interact, connect, and collaborate. I do all these mind-body practices, and we'll get into kind of the community stuff I do as well. But, ultimately it's to better relate and connect to others and create more collaboration, improve communication. I think that's what's going to take me the furthest and what has been most vital to my success. If you're isolated and you can't relate and connect to others, it gets difficult to take things further, or as far as you would like. So that's the tidbit.
So what does it actually look like when you're doing your gratitude session? You're sitting there, maybe you're writing something out, maybe you're just thinking it. Are you choosing or noticing the same things every single day, or do they change? What's your protocol for it?
Yeah, you want to make it as simple as possible. Whatever comes naturally. Hey, I'm just grateful to feel somewhat rested from this sleep. I'm just grateful to have my body intact. I'm grateful to be breathing, to be calm. I'm grateful for a new day, a new opportunity. I'm grateful for the person next to me, or I'm grateful that I'm not next to anybody and being bothered.
Yeah, some days when it's hard, it's not always easy for me when I do that. I do it every morning also, but I'll like just force myself to come up with things and I'll put my attention on them for a minute, such as the fact that I have limbs. And I'll put my attention there. I'm like, yeah, it's actually pretty great that I have these. And I find that if I do that, the day seems to flow a bit easier. Everything just feels subjectively like a better experience. And we all had the opposite effect where something happens, something goes wrong, and then you're in a bad mood and things just go wrong one after another, one after another. And all of a sudden it's like, well, I might as well just give into it at this point because I've already gone deep down the spiral. But this is a way of stopping that pattern before it even starts and creating the pattern that we do want.
You're safeguarding yourself. What is that that book that childhood book, Alexander's Very Bad, Awful Day or something, and he just kept reinforcing it and it just spiraled out of control. Like, the natural world is occurring around us, but the way that we interpret it, the way that we choose to react, respond, and engage with the world is ultimately going to determine our experience. And we have so much power and control over not the stimulus, but the reaction to the stimulus in Viktor Frankl's terms. We have to hold that power. That power should be empowering, that we can always choose how we respond and react. And we have these micro practices or these mini embodiment methods that allow us to do so.
Yeah, exactly. I'm partial to all the things that you can do anywhere in the world, anytime, and with minimal to no required resources. And one of those that I know you're a big fan of is breathwork.
Breath is life. We come into this world, we take our first breath, we depart, we take our last. The life cycle is the breath cycle. That's the most important thing that we're going to do. You get, if you're in great health and there's optimal conditions, maybe you can survive 2 weeks without food. In very rare cases, if you're lucky. Probably not, but we could stretch it. Water. In ideal conditions, with the best of circumstances, if you're fully healthy, maybe you can get 2 days, maybe 3. How long can you go without breath? I've been doing it for a while. I've been immersed, very dedicated for, maybe a decade and a half. I mean, I've been doing conscious breath work, diaphragmatic deep breathing for at least 20, 25 years. 20, 25 years ago, I knew it calmed me down. I didn't fully understand until I started getting certified the last 10 years and diving deeper. But you control your breath. The other analogy that is not mine, the kite is the mind, the breath is the string. This is how we're controlling things. Put yourself back in the driver's seat. Breath control. There's techniques. You distill breath work down into 3 categories: strong, activating, opening, energizing. That's Wim Hof. That's essentially, this should be understood too. This is really important to the listeners. Wim Hof is more medium to active opening form. Now, we know of holotropic breathing. Stan was an incredible, scientific investigator of altered conscious states. And I want to emphasize this right now with the whole plant medicine craze. You can induce the highest states of conscious being. You don't need any plant medicine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But if your conscious capacity does not need it, then you need to honor that and listen to that. You can bring yourself to the higher states as far as you believe in naturally. Stan, from the holotropic breathing, created an entire institute and giant following. And I've done holotropic. I love it. If you want to do that in a halftime, neurodynamic. In the 1970s, we had rebirthing, and he was doing what is called conscious connected breathing, circular breathing, fully in and out. That's all it is. There's at least a dozen or more distinct forms, and it's the same thing. It's active opening breath work. Wim Hof breath work. Fully in and out. Breathe. It's all the same stuff. Energizing breath work. rebirthing, conscious connected, circular. There's dozens of forms, and it's all the same thing. Let's simplify it. Then you get into the rhythmic breathing, the medium breathing, and that's like Bastrika. It's like the pranayama stuff that you'll use to settle yourself and organize yourself to get into meditation. And then you'll use gentle breathing techniques, soft breathing techniques, ujjayi, alternate nostril, single nostril, low belly breathing. I'm into the oxygenated advantage, and they're doing the LSD breathing, light, slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing. So you go from the you smooth it out. And I have to add here too. We have 3 distinct categories of breathwork: strong, medium, gentle, soft. You're using this to get into meditation or create mind states ultimately, or to regulate physiology internally. It's biological governance, is how I like to put it. And holistically, integrative living, using all the techniques in one, you need a little bit of rid yourself of the loose energy. It's the same thing in Qigong. You'll take a walk, you'll do some light warm-ups, meridian tapping, stretching, or you'll do the asana, the physical yoga practice. You'll do some like active breath work, a stretch, you'll do some yoga, and then you'll get into medium, then you'll get into gentle, then you'll get into meditation. Meditation is not, elimination of thoughts. It's more so observation and embodiment and being, resting in your being, training attention and focus. And then you'll periodically use breath work and a little bit of yoga to sustain the meditation.
Yes, exactly. Back in ancient India, where not breath work, but yoga originated and breath work was given a special importance, it was because they all work together, the gentle movements, the meditation, your breathing. And I like to think of the body like an instrument. Say, imagine a guitar. If one of the strings is a little bit too long, a little like not quite taut enough, it makes a very different sound, and it can be a jarring sound. But if you get it just right, it sounds perfect. It plays perfectly. And by physically manipulating the body, whether it's through breath work or yoga, or just clearing the mind like that, you're able to bring the whole biological system back into balance so that it has that perfect sound. You're able to have downloads. You're able to move through your day with ease. New opportunities just magically seem to flow your way. It all goes as well as it possibly could.
We don't want to get esoteric or new age, but being on the right vibration, there's something measurable there. And we're talking like brainwave states. We're all biohackers. We love our brainwave states. Do you want to induce high performance brainwave states? Well, you can use tech and measurement, or you can do meditation, mindfulness, breath work and induce the proper brainwave states and have the high performance.
I don't think I told you this, but I'm a big fan of one particular brain training and neurofeedback system called Sensei. And I've recorded a podcast with their founder and science team a while back. But I had a recent call with the CEO, and I was talking to her about how do you guys like calibrate the scores? Like, you're giving us a score at the end of the session. What's it based on? Like, what's the calibration from? And she told me that it comes from like the world's best neurofeedback users. People have been doing it for decades, who are the top of the game. But then also meditators, the meditators who are the very best at accessing desired states on command and just holding that state. And it might be a gamma, like a high performance ability to connect the dots. And I mean, the flow state, that's like essentially gamma. Or it might be a theta, where that's where most people attempt to drop into when they meditate. Or maybe it's even just a beta to get more work done. And so the best meditators can choose what state they want to be in and just hold it. And because they're so adept at that, the neurofeedback companies actually tune and calibrate their scores based on those meditators. So I've recorded a number of episodes on breath work. I love the idea of being able to very quickly, within 30 to 90 seconds, shift your state anywhere, anytime, just using your breath. It's incredible that you can do that. But then breathing is just one of your pillars of wellness. What would you say if someone wants to understand the landscape of wellness, the 10,000 foot overview? How would you break it down?
Yeah, I just want to close out with the utility, usefulness of the meditation and inducing mind states. Because say that I just have to close that out. Say that you're working on a large problem and you're hitting a wall, hitting a wall, hitting a wall. You're not breaking through. You're getting drained. You're getting burned out, but you've got to get this deadline done. People think the attack, and I used to be like that too. Attack, 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 attack until we finish. That's not going to work. If you back off, let things settle, the unconscious mind is much more powerful than the conscious mind. Say that you've attacked it 10, 100 times and you start giving yourself supplemental meditations. In one of those meditations, the answer may reveal itself to you, come to you naturally.
And to add to that, also, when you're going to sleep, that's another great time to have your final thought be whatever it is that you need to break through on. And your subconscious gets the chance to mull it over all night while you sleep. So during meditation and during sleep, or before sleep, I should say.
Yeah, sleep is, I think, the most important thing. We're going to spend a third to a fourth of our life. If you're going to start hacking and focusing, getting good sleep, if that's all you can achieve, that's wonderful. I think that's one of the biggest missed opportunities. I'm not a sleep expert, but all the stuff that I do will allow you to sleep, self-regulate. I'd love to come back to the sleep in my routines. And I think that'll come out as I'm explaining the way that I do holistic health. Now, leaving my undergraduate, a lot of people will say like undergraduate's a survey. It's very basic. Sometimes when we're in college, it's so hard. I'm like, how am I ever going to get out of this and pass? And then we get out of it and we go, that was kindergarten. Like, bring on more. And a lot of folks will tell me like, the biggest realization I had in my undergraduate was be skeptical, or, know that you have to get a stamp of approval and it's not always about learning. It's about getting a stamp of approval, or, other things. And I felt like frameworks. Now I had some other teachers and other supplemental education and training, but frameworks were the way that I was able to enter any knowledge domain, any area of expertise, and have, say like you're in economics, you're going to start economics class and they're going to be like, we're going to begin this field of study through these assumptions and frameworks. To enter a field of study, you have to have those parameters to navigate. So why don't you have that for your health, your well-being, and the design and your lifestyle design, the way you're going to live your life? So that's where I come in as a coach and consultant, whether it be on the individual, group, or corporate level. I'm coming in and I'm giving a workable, tried and true, proven framework that you're going to use to navigate. It's going to be the backbone. The most common frameworks that I use, the way that I overcame my, detrimental holistic health risks and adversity was through the 5 key categories of wellness by Dr. Terry Walls. The way that I worked on my autoimmune, my mental health, other things, I use the 5 key categories of wellness: sleep, diet, nutrition, movement, mobility, detoxification, and stress management. And I work this framework and I work this framework and I work this framework. That way I don't go too far in one direction and get lost or get consumed. You always bring yourself back to the high level. 5 key categories of wellness. Very powerful. It's how I work with people. But that's so health orientated. So then I expanded and I thought, what is a life well lived? What is true fulfillment? How am I going to look back? And I got overly obsessed in optimization and health and stuff. And there's just more to life. So I used the 8 domains of wellness. Big on, I think Tim Ferriss talks about lifestyle design. A lot of serial entrepreneurs, a lot of folks talk about lifestyle design. Like, what are you waking up to each day? What are you looking forward to? And what's the trajectory? So lifestyle design can be distilled down into the 8 key categories of wellness. Physical, as we talked about, I had that 5 key categories of wellness that really addressed the physical. It bled into other areas, but it was primarily physical health. And I feel like that was limiting. I wanted to be connected, well, and, making contributions to the world. So physical, social, we're social beings. I think the biggest risk in COVID was the social isolation. I think personally, I don't want to get my head bitten off, but I think that was the hardest thing, what killed the most people personally. We need others to co-regulate. Our internal, being and physiology is not going to be intact without connection and regulation with others. I have been in social isolation. I have disconnected so much so that I've lost my conscious contact, my ability to relate and connect to others. And that's true health. Emotional intelligence became a buzzword 15 years ago, and now it's huge, and that's vital. We need to raise our emotional intelligence. We need to be, cognizant of that. Environmental. I've taken environmental a little bit different. Yeah, I'm really concerned with being a steward of the earth, preserving natural resource, being mindful of the impact, mindful of my consumerism. All of this is vital. But sustainability is also tying into social, tying into, routines and stuff. The environment that I'm in most frequently. I'm going to talk about my office, my home, my yard, when I go to school, when I go to work, when I go to these, extracurricular or in entertainment places, when I'm out in nature. What environments am I frequenting the most, and what impact do they have on me, and what impact do I have on them? Leadership, you go into a room and you don't have to say anything, but your energy can up the level of that room. Your output and how you decide to show up can change everything. You don't have to say a word. So environmental wellness, I've expanded, and as well as sustainability. I have an article on my blog. Sustainability is simply put, what can we keep up with each day? I'm not going to obsess and say that I have to have a completely sustainable living home that's off the grid, that has permaculture, that has the perfect cycle, everything's interconnected. I have friends that can do that. I'm not there yet. That's not practical. In wellness, it's always about what's practical, what's accessible, what's within reach. So environmental and sustainability is what can I actually keep up with, what makes sense for me. And there's other components of resourcefulness, of environmental stewardship, respecting, loving the earth. That's there. But I expanded a little bit. Ultimately, my goal is to create an expansive definition of wellness so we all have something to reach into, to draw from, and to make our own. It's going to look different for everybody. But these frameworks are pretty universal, and you can make your own way through them. Physical, emotional, social, environmental, personal values. I do a lot of corporate wellness, so I don't talk about the spiritual. People come to me for spiritual wellness. People highlight me for that, but I'm very careful because I don't want to appear to be some guru, some mystic, or this or that. My goal is to demystify health and wellness, mindfulness, meditation, these practices, higher being. It's actually measurable and scientific, and that's my greatest endeavor, is to prove that to people and teach people in a way that they can understand. So your wellness in your life starts with what matters to you. The governance of your life are your values and virtues. Once you know your values, nothing can come in between you and your values. That's going to shape and drive the rest of your life. That's how you're going to achieve what you wish for. Number one practice is virtue practice. Drilling virtue again and again, compassion, tolerance, truth, love, courage.
What does drilling those things mean?
Thank you. What's the difference between an intention and a goal? A goal is what's going to be realized, what's maybe measurable, or what's going to happen or take place. But the intention is, how am I going to feel? What is that experience going to be like? One of the first mindfulness and meditation techniques I learned was visualization. Scientifically proven, the greatest athletes, the greatest CEOs, great leaders, you have to have a vision. In humanity, we always hype up the visionaries. You have to have a vision guiding you. Vision work is important. You have to see things in the future. Otherwise, you're only going to achieve what you can see. If you can't see it, then you're not going to believe it. It's never going to happen. So the intention is, how are we going to feel and what's surrounding that? The goal is the actual concrete achievement. we were tying that back to personal values and virtue. A value can be observed and potentially achieved. A virtue is something that can't ever fully be achieved and that you're striving towards, you're embodying. So you have to keep drilling it. You have to keep going.
What does that actual drilling practice consist of, though?
Putting it into practice, making it applicable. Okay, I want to be courageous. That's great. I'm doing exercises, but you know what? I went and told a family member something that I had been holding back for a long time. I got that off my chest. I went and addressed a problem with my employer. I told my friend something. I said no to a social constraint. I spoke up about something that I feel like is, wrong in the world. I went and stood up for somebody that I didn't know. How am I embodying courage? How am I embodying the virtue? It's infinite. You have to look for the opportunities to actually embody them. It's one to meditate, to drill on it, but you have to live it out.
Yeah, that's where the real value is. I mean, the knowledge itself is never enough. It's the actual implementation, the integration into life, daily life, that's the hardest and the most valuable.
It all starts with what matters to you. Your life should be designed around what brings you joy and what fulfills and is meaningful for you. And that might not be straightforward, but once you figure that out, you're going to be able to take yourself a lot further.
Yeah, and being over here in India, I've seen firsthand that it might seem obvious or intuitive that it should be to you, it should be what you want. But there are a lot of times social pressures, cultural pressures, whether it's from family, it's from society, it's from friends, pushing you or pulling you in certain directions that even if you do achieve the highest level of success there, oftentimes people turn around and see that the actual mountain they wanted to climb is the higher one in the background, not the one they just climbed. And then they have to climb down the one they just climbed and up the second mountain to get to the one that they actually wanted the whole time. Do you have any tips on that, especially if there's the pressures, whether they're familial or social, like when it's not always as easy as it seems to navigate that? Like it seems easy to me, and then I hear other people's situations and I realize it can get a lot more complex.
I think overall wellness is required to do anything well or to achieve anything, especially when it's higher stakes, or say you've got your family pressures, your societal pressures. You might have to ready yourself up and be ready to disappoint somebody. And getting to know yourself through meditation, through mindfulness, through exploration, experimentation, through wellness will bring the best version out of you. And if you can keep showing up as that best version, then people will naturally accept whatever else comes with that. But being confident, being embodied, if you're in your breath, if you're well, if you're taking care of yourself, if you're at your highest being, you're going to be able to do more and influence others and show people that, you're not going against the grain. You're not being confrontational or anything. You're just living out your truth.
Yeah. And sometimes when I'm confronted with something tricky or challenging that I don't necessarily want to do immediately, even if it's something large or it's something small as getting in an ice bath, I think through, like, the only thing that's more painful than trying something and failing miserably is wanting to try something and just not trying it. And then every single day, day in, day out, living with that burden of the potential, the what if I had done this.
Do you know where hell is, Nick?
Go ahead.
Hell is where you go to meet the person you could have been. Hell is on earth. I've been to hell. You can be, it's not achieving your potential. It's not being true to yourself. It's living a lie.
All right, let's get back on track. Remind me of the next pillar of wellness.
Physical, emotional, social, environmental, personal values. Getting into all of this allows you to do occupational wellness. Our contributions matter. So occupational, vocational, essentially what we wish to contribute to the world, valuing that and making sure that's in alignment with who we are and not overbearing. We all have to do some sort of work, some sort of economics, and have some offering, and we should appreciate what we're doing and giving to people. perhaps we don't get fulfillment in work. Well, maybe we have volunteer, we have other projects, other things we do. There's a way to work it. And then trying to work with people and organizations that are aligned with your values. Then we get into intellectual, being lifelong learners, making sure that we're developing our mind. That's huge for longevity. I'm huge into reversing cognitive aging and fighting cognitive decline. I have Alzheimer's, dementia clients that I work with, and I have so many protocols that I'm fighting all these age-related illnesses. I don't want to say aging is a choice. I don't want to sound too crazy, but there's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot in our power. And keeping the mind sharp, like me, like generally my morning routine, this is a big thing. We're glued to these screens. I feel like they take my breath away. They suck the life out of me. They consume me. They're addictive. This is all true, but I can't get off of them. So I try to make sure I have a healthy relationship, and as amount of screen time, I have a ratio to book and reading page time to offset, because I get kind of sick and irritated from my phone. The fastest way for me to get back on track is to do a phone fast. All my neurotransmitters, all my focus, everything, all my fragmentation will come and centralize through phone fasting, through getting off electronics, getting into nature. Easiest way to reset, easiest way to be well. And a lot of reading. I read in, 3 different languages. Then finally, financial, which I'm not teaching people how to be financial wizards, but it's all about your relationship with money, how you see money as a medium of exchange, and the intention that you put into money. Money is vital. You have to have money. You have to earn money. You're going to want to do your best to earn it. And, maybe meaningful, maybe not, maybe impactful, maybe not. But we have to use our resources well and, design our life in the way that makes sense. Now, are we making trade-offs that we're making so much money that we're never going to be able to enjoy it? Or do we have limiting beliefs around money that it's evil and now we're not going to have it, we're going to have other problems? Or are we somewhere in between? Finding the right balance. And it's really, I emphasize your relationship with money and your money mindset. You don't have to be a high income earner to be wealthy. There's plenty of high income earners that they're not wealthy. They're in bad shape and they're not enjoying life the way they could be.
When I was in high school, my dad had me read a book called The Millionaire Next Door, and it was a case study of a bunch of different millionaires. And the author went on to show that the vast majority of millionaires in the United States never had a very high salary, and at least the ones who maintained that throughout their life, they didn't have a huge salary, and they continued to live the way they wanted to live, and they just were more savvy with their spending and their habits and everything. Even though they didn't have a huge salary, they were able to accumulate more than people who were making $1.5 million a year and spending $1.48 million a year. And what's really interesting about that too is that I thought that I had a good mindset around money. And then I sat down one day, and as part of my men's group, we wrote down all of our thoughts, our feelings, everything that had to do with money and where it came from, like trace it back up, the lineage and everything. And I realized that I had some work to do. And it's not just financial life, but if we sit down and we look at what each of these things mean to us and our beliefs around them, whether it's our family risk of degenerative disease or it's emotional health or all these different things, just to do an audit of our beliefs, our notions, our thoughts around them, that's the fastest way to see things and really understand that what we think is our experience often differs from what is our actual experience.
Yeah, take inventory. That's important. See where you're at, assess. All of that is vital.
Any of those domains you just mentioned that you find people either benefit the most from working on universally, or they tend to be areas that people struggle with universally?
I think the most vital and most important is personal values. That's going to determine the rest of your life. That's where you should start. People ask me, is there a sequential order? I'm big into sequence because I'm a Lean Six Sigma person. And I think you should start with the personal values. I think that's going to drive you and push you. And then maybe areas of growth. But I think the intellectual part, a lot of people struggle with because we're so on technology and phones and fast paced, and we're not like learning things concretely or wanting to go back to school because we see school as something like, that's something we already did. I already did that. Or like, I checked that box off, or, oh, I don't want to do that again. I already got through it. It's not like we don't have joy in learning and growing.
Reading for me is one of those things that like it was a practice I did for every day for an hour, and then it slipped a bit recently. And now when I sit down again, each and every time within a few minutes, I get a bunch of just new ideas. It's like I open the book, within minutes, I have a bunch of new ideas, even that are often completely unrelated to what it is that I'm reading, or at least not directly related. And it's like the most productive times I have often come when I put down the work and I go read and do other things like that.
I have that exact same experience. I'm not going to be able to be as creative. I'm not going to have the heightened capacity. I'm not going to be able to do these bigger breakthroughs without my reading, without my reflection and learning time. When I start learning, oh, I connect dots. I create greater trajectory. I start breaking through. It's amazing. And without, yeah, I can power through. I can keep going, and I think I'm productive. But no, you said it.
To me, the highest impact area to focus on initially is the environment, and specifically your living and environments you spend time in. Because when you optimize those, you fix the air quality, the water quality, the ether or EMF, the earth element, like you get all those optimized and really dialed in. The lighting, I mean, artificial lighting is a big one. But once you transmute those into something that's, instead of biologically destructive, it becomes something that's biologically constructive. It builds you up. That's either working with you or against you 24/7. So it's like you get that right. It's dialed. Your sleep environment's dialed. That's the most important environment of all to get right, is your sleep environment. But then that's making everything else easier. Like you're not doing anything after you get it set up. You have like the home that can be, or the bedroom that can be blackout curtains, cool, minimal light. Instead of overhead light, you have light down low that's red and not too bright at night. Like these things you set up and they're optimizing you pretty much on autopilot. Then it makes finding all the other answers easier. Like you can figure out your values better when you're not exhausted, when you're not cognitively drained, when you're not physically drained. And that's my first one is the environment. And then after that, it would be the values. And then comes probably sleep and a bunch of other stuff after that. But that's like the simple one, the simple tweak. It takes a little bit of like budget, a little bit of allocation initially, but at the very least, you can do some of the natural things like getting outside, getting light exposure, getting your feet on the ground, turning off your Wi-Fi when you sleep, simple things like that. Where in your own journey did brain supplements, aka nootropics, fit in?
I had learning and development disorders. I struggled with mental health. I was overemphasizing athletics, sports development. I've been a lifelong martial artist. I'm still training, competing, teaching at a very high level. But I kind of showed that I had some like greater ability early in mathematics, but then I had anxiety. I struggled with standardized tests. I don't know. I just got in my head and it just kind of took off. And that subsided, and I've worked through it through my holistic health journey. But nootropics have been vital. So when I started college, I was struggling with my mental health. I had struggled with school because I had prioritized partying, friends, and athletics more so. I didn't have my intellectual wellness, and I suffered from it. I got into school, and I really struggled with reading. I would read a page in English. It would take me like 25 minutes to read. I didn't even remember what I read. I was like, how am I going to graduate college? So I, got into holistic health, got into biohacking more and more. I had a basis because I was just always naturally inclined to be a healthy person. My grandmother was a mentor. She taught me things. I wanted to be an athlete. So I had drivings, and I had a lot of influences and mentors and people. But on my own personal level, I really neglected this. And I was like, if I don't figure out a way, I'm in big trouble. Coffee was one thing, but then the coffee jitters. So meditation has always been a big thing. Breathwork has always been a big thing. Taking care of my health, all of that. I won state championship when I was 12 years old, and I started getting into vitamins, getting heavier into nutrition. Before that, it was just like eat healthy, you're going to be well. That was easy enough. Vegetables are a priority. But then got into the vitamin supplementation. In high school, I was huge into sports nutrition. And now I look back and think, what did I ever poison myself with sports nutrition? What was I going to GNC for? Is it, I was a bodybuilding giant, wrestler kid. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I knew a ton about sports nutrition, but like, that's not sustainable or necessarily good for you, even though it can have short-term and fun gains. Getting into college, I was like, what else am I going to do? Started understanding nootropics very early on. There's more than coffee. I had to have Vyvanse, Adderall, these amphetamines that are 1,000% dopamine surge because I couldn't study and get through college without it. And I knew, I was like, this isn't going to last. And I started supplementing. I started experimenting with compounds and teas and was really into the natural things first. And then my nootropic knowledge and ability just kept growing. I understood what brain-derived nootropic factor was, and I was trying to get more of it. And then I started using compounds. I got beyond the herbs and the adaptogens and the stimulants, because that's what a lot of people think nootropics are. In college, by the end of college, I was starting to get into my favorite category of the racetams. And that I just kept learning and growing and tweaking and improving. And I was able to get off amphetamines. It's a huge life achievement. And I do help folks work towards that same goal. But yeah, over the last 14 years, my nootropic knowledge has really grown and I consult with it. But it came out of perils and dismay of, I wasn't going to get anywhere in life without it. I couldn't keep taking amphetamines, couldn't keep taking stimulants. I had to find other means.
Yeah, I get that. And your own journey back with sports nutrition in high school mirrors my own. And I hadn't connected the dots, but I now realize that my interest in nootropics and those substances that can enhance human biology and physiology actually came from there. And there was a product, a pre-workout, very popular back in the day, which has since been banned, called Jack 3D. And they had all kinds of very strong stimulants in it, one in particular. And I guess that was what got me interested in that world. How can this one molecule make this pre-workout leagues more powerful than the rest? And yeah, I guess then in college, I looked for a natural alternative to the classic study drugs that everyone around me was using, and came across, of course, the adaptogens and herbals and botanicals, and then eventually the racetams and other things. And still like them to this day, still use nootropics. Are you still using them?
So my stack today was taurine, alpha GPC, half a gram of piracetam, and 300 millis of aniracetam. I usually do 6-week cycles and then cycle off. Sometimes I take breaks, but what I'm really trying to get into, again, the whole idea is bioharmonizing. We're trying to get back to the earth. I'm really trying to connect with my local herbalism, use the adaptogens that are available right in my backyard. Specifically, more so, we've got a lot of fungi here. The mushrooms are pretty plentiful. So I'm trying to work a better adaptogens and natural nootropic regimen right now. Yeah, racetams are amazing. I mean, something really personal, I partied a lot and I think I did damage. I had concussions. I had mental health issues. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, life was really different. And I've been able to transform myself. And I attribute a lot of that from sensible nootropic usage.
Yeah, I get it. I played collision sports for a lot of my life also. I played American football for, I want to say 10 years through high school, before high school, and then through high school, and then college, and not American, but rugby also. And at the time in college, I was like, I should probably look for something that's going to be neuroprotective, or at least have some of those types of mechanisms, because it's impossible to get through a season, let alone a career, without any kind of head banging. And so that was a big one for me. And one of the things I love about nootropics in general, whether it's for sports or it's just to excel in life, is that they can provide a temporary boost of motivation and drive and energy and the things that you're looking for when you're not optimized, when you're having the hardest time building the new habits that you need to stay that way and get that way, to drop the weight, to then have less inflammation, to then be able to accomplish all your goals. So they can serve as like a short-term booster while you make the underlying changes. And then if you decide to taper off them or just stop them, of course, after working with someone who's knowledgeable about them, then you maintain the benefits. And I also think it's smart for you to look locally, because I have a feeling that the things you find in your backyard will confer benefits and advantages to the current climate, the current environment. So if it's like very cold there, perhaps stuff growing there that will give you a more thermic effect, stuff like that. And that's why historically humans have always consumed large amounts of the botanicals in their backyard, aside from the obvious lack of shipping and transportation and everything.
Yeah, I got some important points to make about this. As far as gut health strategies go, I think the most stratified best thing is to eat a variety of plant species. My goal on a regular basis, can I get 50 different unique plant species in a day? I'll drink 10 teas, I'll take 10 herbs, and I'll work through a lot of vegetables, have vegetable powders. But like, I think that ancestrally speaking is what allowed the gut microbiome in, ancestral human to evolve and to create this, brilliance that we have today. So that's a major strategy, is working with natural wellness, working with ancestral wellness, gut health priority. And then locality is a huge holistic health thing. That's going to help you better, self-regulate, be attuned and synchronized to where you are. Similar to the effect of grounding, being in the natural cycles, being cyclical, being in sync with the natural patterns. Maybe your nutrition, diet, health regimens will change with the seasons. That's important too. I make a lot of seasonal offerings in the way that I recommend holistic health to folks, and my regimens change as well. And the more in tune I can be with the environment. So all of that put together.
Yeah, that's an awesome way to do it. And when it comes to diet, for me, it's fiber, it's local, it's polyphenol rich foods. You check those boxes and you're off to the races. And that's a pretty consistent trend for gut health in general too. If you can tolerate it. If you can't tolerate it, you might need an elimination diet like carnivore or something temporarily, but humans are meant to be able to consume plants. And what's cool about polyphenols is that they undergo like transmutation via gut microbes. They use those as fuel, and they create as byproducts these metabolites that are super protective. They're called postbiotics, which are like probiotics, but they are the byproducts. And there's butyrate, there's urolithin A, there's probably thousands, and it's going to be a frontier of medicine that's we're only now tapping into. But the way you can create a lot of those is by getting plenty of fiber, enough minerals, necessary amino acids, and the polyphenols.
Nick, we have so many wonderful conversations on a regular basis in our entrepreneurship and our friendship. And we really had this common ground where we wanted to bioharmonize. We wanted to get back to natural order. And, we're still in the works of this potential retreat offering to take biohacking and balance it out and bring it more into bioharmonizing. I just wanted to use a few minutes to kind of express some of that.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to a form in this episode in the description so people can put their name, their email, and we'll reach out when we have dates finalized. But yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about what it is a little, David, go ahead.
Yeah, so as I said, balancing your biohacking, from biohacking, introduction to bioharmonizing. How can we return to the urge, the natural order, restore ourselves with environmental wellness? Do we have earth-based practices? Are we using what's natural, what's within reach? All of these other tools are okay. All these external means, exogenous means are okay. But do you have a good basis of natural techniques and routines? Really, your biohacking could just be your routine analysis. That's another way that I coach. We look at our morning routine, our lunch routine. Maybe we break up our workday, our closing out of work, our evening routine, and our bedtime routine. Maybe that's all the biohacking we do. Or maybe, we need to go do deep forest bathing to regulate our mental health and sleep. We need community and connection with others. There's all of these natural means of biohacking that are vital to restore ourselves and to keep ourselves more closely related to the natural world.
Yeah, and for me, a big part of it is looking through the latest biohacks, the things that are trendy, looking at it from, okay, what does the science say? But we also know at the same time, the science is severely biased. Often what we see published in PubMed is only a small fraction of the actual research that's being conducted. And a lot of times, especially with substances, 10 or 20 or 30 years down the line, all of a sudden this new research comes out showing, oh yeah, this actually might cause birth defects, it might cause all these other long list of issues. And that's even with some of the most popular substances that are used. I won't name any names here, but by looking at it through both lenses, the ancestral lens also, we can understand what the reward to risk ratio is, and doing the full audit of a typical biohacking routine and making sure that you're doing the right things at the right times, because the what you're doing is one small part of what actually goes into the information your biology processes. The timing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, who you're doing it with, all these play important roles also. So during this retreat, we're going to be going over some of that to help everyone make the fully optimized, bioharmonized lifestyle plan.
Yeah, your unique routine that fits for you.
And David, if people want to connect with you, to find you online, how do they go about that?
Originsunity.com. Check out my blog. Let me know if you want me to write about anything, any requests, any information to provide. I love that. Origins Meditation on Instagram, I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. Email is david.reveles, Reveles, @originsunity.com. Love to connect with everybody.
Well, David, a couple more questions for you before we close this one out. And the first is, if there was a worldwide burning of the books and all knowledge on earth is lost, but you get to save the works of 3 teachers, who would you choose and why?
I think I'm going to take my Qigong studies with me and kind of the Taoist practices, potentially some pranayama. Now, off the top of my head, I forget like the best like herbalist person that there's so many of them, but some sort of like botanical living off the land kind of thing.
All right. And what is one thing that the Origins Unity tribe does not know about you?
I don't believe in holding beliefs, because your most closely guarded beliefs will define and govern you when you don't know it. And ultimately, beliefs can be limiting.
All right. How would you like to close this one out? If people made it this far, any parting words of wisdom?
Keep it simple, honor yourself, respect others, do what's sustainable.
Easy enough. Well, David, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Like always, it's a pleasure chatting with you, and I look forward to our retreat and talking to you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. And until next time, be an outlier. I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, subscribe and hit the thumbs up. I love knowing who's in the 1% committed to reaching their full potential. Comment 1% below so that I know who you are. For all the resources and links, meet me on my website at mindbodypeak.com. I appreciate you and look forward to connecting with you. As a reminder, the information depicted in this video is for information purposes only. Please consult your primary healthcare professional before making any lifestyle changes.